Elite Facts presents
7 Unbelievable Hauntings on Film Sites.
7.
The Poltergeist. Oh, what a surprise. A horror film makes it onto the list. Well, get used to it, because there are a few horror movies on this list, actually, with really creepy backstories that happened during production. With that out of the way, let's talk about the Poltergeist series. These films were freaking scary back in the day, and they're still pretty creepy to sit through, even today. However, what goes on in the movie is nothing compared to the real-life stories behind the scenes that haunt these films. The film set included real-life skeletons that supposedly brought a curse along with them. A few months before the third movie was released, child actor Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol, was believed to have the flu, but she went into cardiac arrest and, sadly, she died from septic shock at the Children's Hospital in San Diego. This illness literally came out of nowhere. Yikes. Okay, yes, that's one case of someone being harmed or killed. It happens, right? Well, it wouldn't be so weird if it just ended there, but it didn't. Prior to the death of Heather O'Rourke, actress Dominique Dunne, who played the older sister Dana, was strangled to death by a former boyfriend. But this still isn't the end of the string of deaths that occurred in a short amount of time. Other cast members who died since filming are Julian Beck, who played Henry, who died of cancer in 1985, not long after the first film was released, and right before the second. Beck was followed by Will Sampson, the actor who played Taylor, who died before the last film was released from complications during surgery. Zelda Rubinstein, who played Tangina, also passed away after filming, even though her death is more likely attributed to old age. And then, on top of all the actors who died, shockingly, the director who helmed Poltergeist 2, Brian Gibson, died of Ewing's sarcoma at just 59 years of age. This cancer is usually associated with children, so it really seems bizarre that this was the cause of his death. Okay, so what's that now? 6 people who died throughout the series' lifespan? That is crazy, but guess what? It doesn't end there. In an even more spine-tingling addition to the curse, actress JoBeth Williams has since stated that the scariest thing that happened to her during shooting was that they, quote, were supposed to be scared so much, I think everybody's nerves were hypersensitive. I didn't live in LA then, so I was in a rented apartment, and I began to notice that every night when I would come home from shooting, exhausted, fried, the pictures on the walls would be crooked, and I would straighten them, and the next day I would come in and the pictures would be crooked again. So that always made me feel a little nervous about the place I was staying in. Good Lord, if we were in the remake, we'd be alert 24/7 just in case we were feeling ill or had the feeling that someone was trying to kill us. Given this series' curse, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to be alert.
6.
The Omen. Another horror story? Sure, why not? I mean, we are talking about one of the creepiest horror films in history. Most people would agree that the kid who played the role of Damien in the 1975 version of The Omen was seriously creepy, which isn't a bad thing at all, it just tells you the kid is a great actor. The movie itself is seriously creepy too. The story revolves around an American ambassador who gets the shock of a lifetime when he realizes that his son, Damien, is no ordinary boy. He just so happens to be the son of Satan. No biggie, he's just the Antichrist. So yeah, the kid wreaks a ton of havoc and some of the scenes can be downright scary. However, the terror wasn't just restricted to the big screen. A lot of haunting happened off-screen as well. The tragedies began when lead actor Gregory Peck's son, Jonathan Peck, committed suicide 2 months before filming was scheduled to start. As if that wasn't bad enough, just as production on the film started, a crew member was in a car accident. Thankfully, the crew member in the accident survived the crash. Following this, however, the scriptwriter's plane was struck by lightning. Then the plane in which Gregory Peck and the executive producer of the movie were traveling in was also struck just 8 hours later. In a tragic turn of events, the crew decided to hire a private plane to use in a couple of scenes. However, their scheduled flight had to be postponed because a couple of businessmen needed it. Just after takeoff, something went wrong, and the plane crashed into a road, hitting a car, which then crashed at high speed into another vehicle. Everyone involved in the accident was killed. If that doesn't scream work of the devil to you, then we don't know what will. The idea that all of these events happened in such a short period of time to each other, as well as the fact that similar events kept happening to different people involved in the film's production, like the lightning striking their respective planes, is just downright freaky when you think about it.
5.
The Crow. Okay, so we usually talk about The Crow quite a lot in reference to the ill-fated demise of Brandon Lee. It's still shocking, even to this day. However, we never talk about the other incidents that occurred during the filming of this cult classic. On The Crow's first day of shooting, a crew member had to be hospitalized after his crane ran into a power cable, and he suffered burns over 90% of his body. Not long after that incident, a construction driver drove a screwdriver through his own hand. A set sculptor drove his car through the props room and completely destroyed it, and most of the set was destroyed by a storm. 4. The Matrix. Now we come to the first non-horror related film that was essentially cursed during its production. This story is appropriately called The Curse of the Matrix. Now, let us just warn you ahead of time that this one is incredibly depressing to listen to. So to start it off with, we need to mention the soul-crushing fact that the film's main star, Keanu Reeves, lost his unborn son during the film's production. His girlfriend, Jennifer Syme, gave birth, but the baby was stillborn. Unable to cope with the loss, they broke up soon after. Not long after the breakup, Jennifer died in a car accident. Shortly after this tragedy, 22-year-old Aaliyah lost her life in a plane crash. She was in the middle of filming her role as Z in the movie. The tragic event threw everything off course, and filming was postponed by a few months. Not long after, another cast member passed away, Gloria Foster, who played the role of the Oracle. At one point during all this drama, Reeves himself landed in the hospital after a motorbike accident. Later during filming, he went right back to the hospital after sustaining a foot injury on set. That's still not all, as Reeves' sister suffered a relapse in her struggle against leukemia during the production of this film. Sheesh, Reeves simply couldn't catch a break throughout the whole film's production. The cost of making the film also continued to skyrocket, to the point where Keanu Reeves agreed to sign away $24 million of his own paycheck in order to keep the entire production from collapsing. Luckily, the movie did very well at the box office, despite the bad luck that haunted it. 3. The Conjuring. So the film itself is based on the true story of the Perron family, who experienced unexplained and terrifying ghostly activity in their home in Rhode Island in the 1970s. The family, all except Carolyn Perron, the mom, briefed consultants to make sure the story was accurately told. Mysteriously, as soon as the family set foot near the set, a gust of wind began to swirl around them. Strangely, the crew noticed that the trees remained still. And that's not even the weirdest part. Even though Carolyn decided to stay at home while the rest of the family went to the set, she felt uneasy, like there was an eerie presence in her house. Not long after, she fell and was rushed to the hospital. Bizarrely, a mere few days later, the hotel the actors and movie crew were staying in suddenly caught fire. On top of this bizarre series of events, the director of the film, Juan, did not feel alone either. When he was working late one evening, his dog began to growl ferociously. Juan tried to find out what could possibly be causing his dog to freak out, but the dog was growling at some unseen entity. 2. The Passion of the Christ. Maybe this one has something to do with a higher power rather than a spooky ghost. I mean, after all, almost everything that happens here happens to the guy who was playing Jesus Christ. First thing we should mention before moving on to all the incidents that involve Jim Caviezel is that the assistant director of the film, Jan Michelini, was struck by lightning twice on set. And they say that lightning doesn't strike twice. Well, it doesn't. It actually strikes 3 times. Jim Caviezel was also struck by lightning. Apparently, smoke literally came out of his ears, to the shock of others on the set. Witnesses of the incident said that his whole body looked like it was illuminated. The actor also had a piece of his flesh ripped out during the fake whipping scene, and he dislocated his shoulder while carrying the wooden cross. But it doesn't end there. He also suffered hypothermia, a lung infection, and severe pneumonia while filming. And he got terrible headaches and skin infections because of the long makeup sessions he had to sit through. 1. The Exorcist. It's a known fact that director William Friedkin kept his entire cast on edge during the production of The Exorcist as a way to bring a more realistic performance out of them. This was a common practice used by directors at the time, like Stanley Kubrick when he directed The Shining. The series of unnerving goings-on during The Exorcist shoot surely helped to keep them this way, too. Actress Linda Blair, who played the possessed young Regan, nearly broke her back when a mechanical device had a major malfunction during one of the bed-shaking scenes. Renowned actor Max von Sydow, who played Father Merrin, suffered through the whole film's production. He was in great health at the beginning of the production, but suffered from a series of unexplained illnesses throughout the course of filming. Other various actors' health were also at risk. On a number of occasions, lights that had been rigged to the ceiling of sets fell without explanation, luckily never hurting anybody. The film took a major blow, however, when all of the interior sets of the McNeil residence, aside from Regan's room, burnt down to the ground and delayed production for 6 weeks. It's pretty safe to say that this whole film was cursed from the beginning of its production.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.